It was the kind of rain that didn't just soak your clothes, it reached into your bones. The kind that made the city look colder than it already felt. And that night, as the wind whipped down the deserted street, Jacob Monroe never expected to find anyone there, especially not her. He was driving home from a late shift, the heater barely keeping up with the icy air, when he noticed a small form curled up under the flickering light of a street lamp. At first, he thought it was just an old blanket blown by the wind. But then it moved. Jacob slammed on the brakes. She was shivering, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, sitting on the curb in the pouring rain. Nothing covered her but a soaked, thin blanket. Her hair clung to her face, and her eyes, wide with fear, looked up as the headlights caught her. For a moment, neither of them moved. The only sound was the rain. Then she whispered, barely audible. "Please, don't hurt me." Jacob stepped out, slowly. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said gently, kneeling beside her. "You need help." She shook her head. "I just need to disappear." Her name was Emily. She looked no older than 22. She was barefoot. Freezing. And clearly terrified. Jacob couldn't just leave her. He offered her his coat, and after some hesitation, she accepted it, still clutching the blanket like a lifeline. "I have a daughter," Jacob said, as if to assure her he wasn't dangerous. "And a spare room. You can warm up, eat something. That's all. You can leave in the morning if you want." Something in his voice, steady, kind, made her trust him. The first night. Jacob lived in a modest house on the edge of town, quiet and filled with the soft laughter of his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. When they arrived, Lily was asleep. Jacob made Emily tea and set her up in the guest room, placing fresh clothes and a warm towel on the bed. She didn't talk much, only thanked him before closing the door. But that night, Jacob lay awake, listening through the thin wall as she cried herself to sleep. Days turned into weeks. At first, Emily barely spoke. She flinched at sudden noises. She never looked Jacob in the eye. But she helped, washing dishes, folding laundry, sweeping the porch. She was quiet, gentle with Lily, and always polite. One night, Jacob found her staring out the window, lost in thought. He didn't push her. But he said softly, "You don't have to carry whatever it is alone." She didn't answer right away. Then, finally, she whispered, "I had nowhere else to go." The story she hid. It took a month for her to open up fully. Emily had grown up in a foster system that never gave her roots. At 19, she fell in love, with the wrong man. At first, he was charming. But things changed fast. The man turned cruel, controlling. She had no family to run to, no friends left. When she finally escaped, she had nothing. Just a blanket she'd taken from the motel room. That night in the rain, she had been trying to find a place to sleep under a bridge. Jacob listened without interrupting. Then he said something she never forgot. "You were never invisible. You were just waiting for someone to really see you. A place to heal." Lily adored Emily. She would braid her hair, tell her stories, and beg her to read bedtime books. Emily, who once felt like a ghost, began to feel needed. Jacob never treated her like a victim. He gave her space. Encouragement. Respect. And slowly, the house that once echoed with loneliness began to feel like a home, for her too. One day, Jacob handed her an application for a local community college. "You said you wanted to be a nurse." Emily stared at the form. "I can't afford it." "I started a fund," he said with a shy smile. "I've been putting away a little every week." Tears welled in her eyes. "Why would you do this for me?" "Because someone should have," he said simply. The turning point. Life didn't become perfect overnight. Emily had panic attacks. Sometimes she'd wake up screaming. But therapy helped. So did Lily's hugs. And Jacob's patience. She got a part-time job at the local clinic, started college classes, and for the first time in her life, believed in her own future. One evening, while Lily played on the rug and Jacob was fixing dinner, Emily stood in the doorway, watching them both. She had never imagined a life like this, a life with laughter, security, and a man who treated her with kindness instead of fear. Jacob turned and saw her watching. "You okay?" She nodded. Then, for the first time, she smiled and said, "I think I finally am." 3 years later, Emily graduated top of her class. She became a pediatric nurse, known for her warmth and understanding with traumatized children. She and Jacob never rushed things. But over time, something unspoken grew between them, trust, affection, and a bond built on shared healing. On the anniversary of the night he found her, Emily stood on the porch holding Lily's hand, watching the rain fall gently. She remembered that girl who sat alone in the dark, cold and afraid. Jacob came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her shoulders. "You're not her anymore." "No," she said softly. "But I'll never forget her. Because she led me to you." Final message. This story isn't just about being rescued. It's about rising, from fear, from brokenness, from hopelessness. Sometimes, all it takes is one person who sees you, not as a problem, but as a soul in pain. Someone who offers warmth, not just with blankets, but with understanding and unwavering support. And when that happens,